Your background looks very fallish. I love it.
Thank you. It's got baldy cattle in the fall. So it's fitting.
I love it. I know it's a perfect beginning of fall, cattle, wonderful time to be in East Texas. So with that, we've got some experts here today who are going to talk to us about our ag program and cattle. And I know, Randy, you know this about me. Dr. Eborn, you don't know this yet, but when I was looking at A&M Commerce, I frankly wasn't that interested because I didn't know much. And then I went to our website and I saw that we had this thriving ag program. And then I saw we had amazing early learning center. And I was like, so let's go out to East Texas and see what they're all about. So it's kind of coming full circle chatting with you both today. But before we dive into the really incredible, distinctive things you're doing here, tell everyone who you are and why you're here. We'll start with you, Dr. Harp.
Hey, my name is Randy Harp. I serve as the Dean for the College of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at A&M Commerce.
Wonderful. Welcome. Dr. Eborn?
Dr. Douglas Eborn, Assistant Professor in Animal Sciences with an interest in animal breeding and genetics and animal reproduction in beef cattle.
Very cool. Dr. Harp, before we launch into cattle, I'm curious, you've done a lot for our College of Agriculture now. Tell me a little bit about our College of Ag and what that means for this university.
Sure. I'd love to. I'm always open and willing to visit about our College of Agriculture. Things are happening. Things are exciting. We have great momentum going with our faculty and staff and students. The pandemic has put a little damper on it, but at the same time, we're still moving forward. We're still increasing in enrollment. And other than administrators, you know, I'm still happy with that too, that we're still increasing in enrollment. That just doesn't mean more funds for the university. It means that more students and more alumni and more industry personnel are getting engaged in our college here at A&M Commerce. I think the thing that has sold me, in fact, I'll give just a little bit of history on me, but not too much, is that, yes, in 1979, I first came to East Texas State University as a young instructor. And now you can add up the years. So many years later, I'm back here now serving as the dean for the college. And at that time, we were a Department of Agriculture. We grew about 6 or 7 years ago into a School of Agriculture. And then in 2018, January of 2018, we became a College of Agriculture. So yes, we're growing. Yes, we're adding new degree programs, new opportunities for our students. And I think that's the key, is what opportunities, not only learning opportunities, but career opportunities can we offer our students?
Absolutely. And I think that the research that's coming out of your college is incredible. And I think one of the distinctive things about A&M Commerce is a focus on applied research. And that is certainly happening with you all. And we have a whole farm to do it on. So tell us a little bit about our cattle and our farm and frame this conversation.
Let me start back with a little bit of history. When I came in 1979, we had 3 purebred groups of cattle. And we had purebreds of Angus, of Hereford, and of Brahman. And they were all purebred. There was no crossbreeding, anything of that nature going on. We had one of the premier Hereford herds for a university, especially in the state of, if not the state of Texas, in southwestern United States. That changed over time. And as I came back 4 or 5 years ago, visited with faculty members that had just come on board, like Dr. Eborn and others, you know, that we had lost some of that educational value from some of those breeds. And so we decided that we would go in a new direction that would fit East Texas, that would fit some preferences of faculty, that we could still use it in an educational setting and conduct research at the same time. And so we put our heads together. Yes, everybody has their own favorite breed.
I don't have my own favorite breed yet, but I think by the end of this conversation, I will.
Every cattleman has their own favorite. Okay. and they can sell you on that breed, and that's great. And we respect that. But what ties for us the best, we felt, was to have a purebred herd, small purebred herd of one breed of cattle. And then for the most part, since 90+% of all cattle in the United States are crossbred, we thought we would take different breeds, put them together, and make a super crossbred breed of cattle. Now, as a history for the novice, there's a lot of composite breeds that have one or have 2 or 3 breeds put together that makes a breed, such as the Beefmaster, the Santa Gertrudis, or the Brangus, and now they are a standalone breed.
Okay.
But what we did was we took the Hereford and the Angus and the Brangus, and we put what we called together the Super Baldy. And
Okay.
it's been that breed cross has really been known for years and years and years. That is not a new mixture. That is not nearly a new rocket science idea. But we know that the hybrid vigor that is produced from that type of breeding is great. And
I'm going to pause you there. Hybrid
Yes.
vigor. What does that mean to
I'm going to let Dr. Eborn
an
handle
island girl? Okay.
a few minutes.
Dr.
Okay.
Eborn, hybrid vigor. What does that mean?
Well, hybrid vigor results when you get new combinations of genes that didn't exist before. So talking about our Super Baldy, and we have a Brahmin, which is a Bos indicus, comes from India, very different kind of breed of cattle versus the Bos taurus that come from Europe and the British Isles. And the idea is when you cross these lines or breeds that are unrelated, you get new combinations of genes that actually improve performance than the genes by themselves. So the idea about crossbreeding is we're creating new combinations that actually outperform the old combinations.
And Dr. Eborn, when you talk about performance, what
Yeah.
does that mean? What is good performance for cattle?
Well, depends on each producer's objectives, what they're trying to do. Typically, we want cows to be productive as far as reproductive efficiency. So one of the best areas that we see the most hybrid vigor is in reproductive traits that tend to be lowly heritable. So there's another term there that we talk about.
Lowly heritable?
Yeah, so heritability
Learning
is
so much already.
Heritability is a term that we use that tells us how much of a trait is controlled by genetics versus environment. Some traits are more influenced by environment and have very little genetic influence.
Give me an example.
What's that?
Give me an example of one in that category.
So a lowly heritable would be the reproductive traits like fertility,
Okay.
pregnancy, where we can manage that with nutrition and health protocols and stuff like that. A highly heritable trait is like some of the composition traits like height or weight.
Okay.
If you breed 2 really big, large framed animals together, they're going to produce a large framed offspring. So they're controlled more by genetics and less by environment.
Okay. Interesting.
So the benefit of the heterosis is it benefits those traits that are more environmentally affected.
And you said earlier, it depends what the producer is looking for. So
Yeah.
give me an idea of, different camps of producers and what they might prefer in terms of performance.
Reproductive efficiency, there's a lot of data out there that says that if you do not produce a calf every year, you don't have anything to sell, to make a profit. So you need to have those calves, and we need those cows the expectation of beef cows is they need to produce a calf every year. Every 365 days, they need to produce a calf. Weaning weight.
Serious expectation.
Yeah, weaning weight. So the weight of those calves at the time of weaning. So we wean beef calves about 5 to 7 months of age. At that time, a lot of producers may go ahead and sell those calves, at an auction or send them off to the feed yards and stuff like that. And they're getting paid on the weight of those calves. So that would be really important for somebody that's focused on just producing calves and selling them at weaning. And then we get to the carcass traits, the meat composition, like marbling, ribeye, or yield grade. If you retain ownership Or if you're feeding out those calves that are eventually going to go to harvest and you're going to get paid based on the carcass composition, then you may put more emphasis on those traits than you do maybe some of the others. So it just depends on how you're marketing your cattle and where you're selling them at.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Super Baldy. What is striking about the Super Baldy or attractive about one in terms of performance?
Let me say a couple things, then I'll let Dr. Eborn take off again because he did real good.
Yes, thank you.
The Super Baldy, first of all, the Baldy, typically Hereford Angus crossbred, F1 or first generation. And that cross has been really good for years. Now, also a Santa Gertrudis Hereford cross or a Charolais Angus cross. Those are also F1 crosses, but they're not Baldies. The Baldy is that black Baldy is that Hereford and Angus where the bald face from the Hereford mixes with the black body of the Angus and we get a black bodied white faced.
Okay.
Bald face, motley face, whatever you want to call it. But that's basically what we call the Baldy. Now the Super Baldy is when we put in a little bit of that Brangus or Brahman influence in with those cattle to give that additional hybrid vigor that what we get off of the first generation cross. Now, some people will use Simmental with Hereford Angus and produce a Super Baldy that way. We have chosen, due to various management factors on our farm, to do the Hereford Angus Brangus crosses.
Okay.
And Dr. Eborn can go into a little bit of, we had an opportunity about 5-6 years ago to acquire a herd of cattle to add on to our herd of cattle to help in this effort. And he was the major part of acquiring that herd of cattle, or a large portion of that herd of cattle that brought in, that really gave us a jump start. Kilgore College was selling their herd of cattle. Texas A&M AgriLife Research Center at Overton with Dr. Charles Long and others had worked with Kilgore College to develop these Angus Brangus cross cattle. And so when the administration there decided to sell the cattle, we took advantage of that. And I'll let Dr. Eborn go on from there.
Thanks, Randy.
Yeah, so we brought in about 95 cows in 2016. And they were mostly Angus cows. I went back and looked at the records before our meeting today, just thinking, well, how many Kilgore had been traditionally an Angus herd for the longest time until they entered into this partnership with Overton, and they started breeding their Angus cows to these Brahman bulls. And again, that's an F1, 50% Angus, 50% Brahman. And when we brought them into the herd, we only had about 50 cows at the time, so it tripled our herd. We went from like about 50 cows to almost 150. And,
wow.
And at that, so they're black, they're straight black with some Brahman influence. And that's when we decided, you know what are we going to breed these cows to? And we had, there's always, again, historically here at the university, we've had the Hereford breed and influence, and we said, let's put these Hereford bulls on these black F1 cows and make them black white faced, and that's where the Super Baldy came from.
The Brahman influence there really is an advantage for East Texas, South Texas, southeastern United States, where it's hot and humid a lot more of the year than other places in the country. So that's why I said earlier, we also looked at the breed type for this crossbreeding that fits our part of the state and our part of the country. And so that's where the Super Baldy really helps. We have since acquired and other breeders such as Cavender Ranch has helped us with semen and so forth, that has also enhanced the breeding on a lot of our cows. We have other people that have now contacted us to help out in the future, and we continue to ask and say, yes, we'd be happy to We don't want your culls that you're taking to the sale barn, but if you have some heifers or young cows or some semen or embryos that you would like to donate to the university to help in this effort, we will be happy to visit with you and in most cases be accept what you offer. I think that we could have gone a lot of different ways. But this is the breed type and the crossbreeding and the hybrid vigor that Dr. Eborn visited about that really is helping us. You know, some of our goals, and let me say this really quickly before before Dr. Eborn gives us more details, is going from 50 to 150 cows truly enhanced our ability to do more research. And with that teaching and the research with these number of cows, it really helped us in our numbers and to be able to provide more validity and repeatability with the research efforts. That alone is excellent. Not many universities have that many cows in their herd to do the research.
That is exciting.
Secondly, this part of Texas and our student engagement, we also have goals for these offspring to be able to be fed out and go to commercial heifer shows at Fort Worth, at Houston, to go into special sales, to go into special F1 or crossbred sales with cooperators or collaborating breeders from East Texas to go into some of their sales. So there's a lot of avenues that we can utilize, as well as Dr. Eborn mentioned about the carcass traits being more highly heritable. We emphasize that, and then if we did retain ownership or we sold them and somebody else took them into the feedlot and then they went on to harvest, then we want to know what that data is. We want to know what that information is so we can enhance and improve our breeding down the road. And most importantly, we're teaching our students that along the way. You know, it's all about the education and opportunities that we still provide to our students.
Absolutely. I'm curious, what kind of research is happening now and what's up on the horizon? What would you like to do more of?
Well, we've done some, personally, I've done some weaning stress studies where we've tried to mitigate at weaning with different strategies, the stress of those calves. Another faculty member has done some supplementation with antioxidants to try to improve fetal growth and improve fetal efficiency during the gestation period. And then we have just got a new faculty member this fall that is interested in the microbiome. So one thing that cattle are ruminants, they've got the 4-chambered stomach with the particularly rumen and reticulum. She is interested in the microbes that actually exist in the gastrointestinal tract and has talked about, interestingly, since she's been here, she said, you know, we haven't looked at the differences in microbiomes in Hereford Angus and in these crossbred cows. Does crossbreeding change or alter the ratios or the different combinations of these microbes that we find in the gastrointestinal tract? So she's been talking about even doing some matings and getting different breed percentages and looking at those changes as well. So
interesting. And what would the differences in the microbiome, you know, and the gut and all of that, what kind of impact does that have on the life of a cow or the production of a cow?
So feed efficiency and the ability to digest particular feeds and things like that. And then there's a lot of correlations, and she is the microbiologist. Again, I'm just the geneticist to repro person, but you know, the interaction, the gut health and how it affects a lot of different facets of cattle production and things like that. So, you know, even in humans, it's a big industry is probiotics and how important probiotics are. I think we're just starting to realize or understand the importance of the microbiome on our livestock animals as well.
Interesting. It makes sense.
One of the things that we've also noticed over the last 10 years, especially, is a change in what I call generational nutrition, and other people have other names for it. But when we go through, as Dr. Eborn is looking at stress on weaning, there are other stresses such as droughts and nutritional stresses at different years. And how does that affect the long-term effect of our cattle, and how does that affect the efficiency reproduction-wise, nutrition-wise, forage utilization-wise, and so forth? So we have worked, and Dr. Eborn has worked since I've been here with a couple of industry partners on doing some mineral research and so forth, that all of this ties into how can we make our livestock more efficient, still safe, healthy, and the consumer acceptable. So it has to be a safe and healthy product for us. At the same time, it also has to take care of the welfare and the care of that animal. Mm-hmm. And so we look at all aspects. We go out there every day saying, how can we help these animals? So I think that's very important as far as a big picture, when you look at our real purpose and objectives, and then start narrowing it down into specific projects.
Very interesting and important work. Dr. Eborn, how did you get into genetics and repro for cattle? What inspired you to,
I met a girl.
Every story starts that way, right?
Yeah. So in my undergraduate, I was actually pre-med, and I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. And I met a girl from a ranch in Wyoming, and got to spend time on the ranch and live out my long life dream of being a cowboy. Uh-huh. And at the same time, I'm taking physics, organic chemistry, biochemistry, and thinking, man, I enjoy raising beef cattle a lot more than I think I'd rather be than being a doctor. So I self-enrolled in an animal breeding and genetics class. Didn't tell my advisor. Just loved the class and said, you know what, I think I'd rather be in agriculture than become a doctor now. My pocketbook says maybe otherwise, but I've really enjoyed, I just have a passion. I don't know, it's weird, but I love beef cattle. So.
And now I'm curious, since you love cattle so much.
Yeah.
You're living your life dream of being a cowboy. What's your favorite breed of cattle?
Hereford. Yeah. I'd probably go Hereford.
Why?
Just the disposition. I think they're gentle cattle. It's what I work with on the farm, so I'm more familiar with that breed and the pedigrees and things like that. So a lot of it is tradition. And as Dr. Harp alluded to earlier, it can get pretty heated, cattle producers talking about their favorite breeds. So I have a son that announced to me earlier that he decided Charolais was the best breed of cattle.
Oh, how did that conversation go in your house?
Well, he announced to me that we should start breeding. I have some cows of my own. He said, Dad, I think we need to start breeding them to Charolais bulls. And so we'll see. I told him, I said, well, if you want to breed, so I can artificially inseminate and do the AI, I said, I guess if you wanted to breed one to a Charolais bull, we could manage that. But yeah, so it's even in our household, there's differences.
I love it. Dr. Harp, what's your favorite breed?
I'm probably not going to be as forthright as Dr. Eborn is.
You have to be Switzerland in your role.
I have owned purebred Angus, purebred Simmental, but I like the Brangus cattle. I like my son has showed Cimbra and Charolais cattle. So I like good cattle, and there are as much differences within a breed as there are among different breeds. And so I just like the good ones of a lot of the breeds. And my son and I still own some cattle together, and a friend of I and I still own some cattle together. So, and they're different. They're not the same breed between my friend and my son. So as far as favorite, again, if I was living in Nebraska, I may not have the same breed type that we've chosen here. But where we are right now in Northeast Texas, I fully support Dr. Eborn and the other animal science faculty and staff in going in this direction as far as utilizing the hybrid Vigor with the Brangus. In fact, I like the Brangus with the Angus on it, and that's another new thing within the Brangus Association. What's that called, Dr. Eborn? That's called
Ultra Blacks.
Yeah, the Ultra Blacks.
Blacks. Yeah.
Ultra Blacks. Wow.
Ultra Blacks is a new composite breed that is with the Brangus and Angus together. So I really like those as well too.
Interesting. If you were going to sell me on Super Baldy being my favorite cattle breed or crossbreed, how would you sell me on that?
If you're a producer or you're a consumer?
Either or.
Well, as a producer, I think just some of the things that we've been talking about. Dr. Eborn mentioned the disposition. The Hereford is really good. The hybrid Vigor, the greater performance that you'll get from the crossbreeding from the Super Baldy in especially in East Texas. If you are in Big Spring, Texas, and in Western Texas, I may not say the same thing. But for East, that's what I'm going to say right now. As far as if you're in a commercial cattle operation, then yeah, I could easily see that. Now, at the same time, you've got to take good cattle of all those breeds to put together with good cattle and to make better cattle. And we've been working on this a long time. This doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in 1 year. We've been working on this now for about 4 years, and we absolutely next week are going to wean some spring-born calves for this fall, and they're the best looking group we've had that we've produced thus far. So
That's
we can
exciting.
try to get better.
Would you say that just like we want A&M Commerce to be the University of East Texas, we could see the Super Baldy being the premier cattle crossbreed of East Texas?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go with it.
Yeah.
What's something that people out there like me who really don't know much about cattle, what do you wish we knew, or what do you want to share about this really interesting world that we might not know?
Well, I haven't seen a movie lately on the cattle whisperer, but there are some reports just come out of the Drover's Journal about people actually using cattle to help in therapy.
Really?
We know we use that with horses, with, people with physical handicaps and things of that nature that use, and mental handicaps that use riding horses as a therapy. Some people are now starting to look at cattle in the same way. Many of you, we're starting to do more animal behavior research that will help people. Now, other than we know that we're feeding the world with protein. When I used to teach in the classroom, I would tell my students when I was talking about beef cattle is our number one goal is to produce protein, because really and truly worldwide, that's our biggest deficiency is not enough people are eating enough protein. Now, you can look at me and tell I eat enough protein, but not everybody across the world. So we are not only having to rely in the future on livestock or beef cattle, we also will be relying on plant proteins as well. So it's got to have to be a combination that we teach people more and more about human nutrition. And the more we know about animal nutrition, reproduction, genetics, and how we can be more efficient and grow these animals, because we're not making any more land. So we have to produce more with the same amount of land and be more efficient, but still yet in the long run, it comes up to how are we going to produce protein for the human race?
Is there research? I have two questions, two-part question about the research about cattle specifically. Is there research about what breeds and crossbreeds, hyperbreeds, that's a made up word, I realize, are most nutritious and best tasting?
Dr. Eborn can answer that one. He's been a part of some of those studies.
Yeah, so, you know, I don't know about the nutritious. I always feel like that as far as nutrition, that they're all pretty similar. And again, as Dr. Harp alluded to earlier, there's just as much variation within a breed as there is between breeds. So it's kind of, you know, if we answer that question, we're going to stereotype breeds a little bit, but in general, the British breeds like Angus, Hereford tend to be more tender and tend to marble a little bit better. And then our continental breeds, the ones that are more heavily muscled, tend to be a little bit less tender. And then probably the reason, the disadvantage of Brahman, and again, why we don't see a lot of just purebred Brahman is that they tend to be the least tender. But again, there's just as much, you know, you can, again, good cattle is good cattle, and you can find, as far as meat quality, good quality in all those different breeds.
Very interesting.
Dr. Eborn was, when he was doing his PhD at Kansas State University, he was on a trained taste panel that helped Dr. Michael Dykman develop EPDs, or expected progeny differences, that we utilize in cattle breeding to select different traits for different breeds of animals for improvement of those particular animals, knowing the heritability, what the rate of improvement may be. And so Dr. Dykman, I think, worked on 13 different breeds.
Yeah.
EPDs, and now that has been taken even further with where Dr. Eborn did his postdoctoral work at USDA Research Station in Meat Animal Research Center in Clay Center, Nebraska. And there's professors there that have done research for years and years and years on flavor and tenderness and crossbreeding of these breeds as the sire breed and so forth at USDA mark. And some of those breeds are pretty consistent, as Dr. Eborn said, with some of the more English or British Isle breeds. As far as flavor and tenderness or ease of marbling to have more flavor, whereas the European breeds have their advantage as well. That's why the crossbreeding is so good, is because we can take the better traits of each of them and try to put them together to make a better animal.
So the hope at the end. Well, before I ask what's on the horizon, I'm curious how this, what we're discussing today, how this relates to our meat judging team.
Oh, okay.
Because so meat judging team is something I had never heard of until I came to the Lion family. And I think it's pretty cool. So layman's term, what's a meat judging team? Why do we have them? Talk to me about that. And why is ours so good?
First of all, the meat judging team, they evaluate, it's a big myth. They don't go taste it. They don't cook it, they don't taste it. They have to evaluate based on USDA standardization branch guidelines as far as the quality and yield or quality and quantity of the meat, whether it be beef, pork, or lamb. They evaluate beef, pork, and lamb carcasses and cuts as to their relative value in the marketplace.
Okay.
They are trained just like a USDA grader would be trained to be able to go in and evaluate and place in various, like USDA Choice, USDA Prime, yield grade 2, yield grade 3 for beef cattle, whatever it may be for each of those red meat species. And so these students are trained. You know, I was on a meat judging team back when I was in college. It changed my whole career path all the way through my whole career. And
wow.
So it changed and it paved a pathway for me. And I truly appreciated that. But the things that they learn other than the subject content is they continue to learn to be a team, learn to work with each other, learn to collaborate. They learn more responsibility, they learn more dedication, they learn more about time management, but budgeting their money as when they travel and so on and so forth. So it really becomes a team effort. And they represent the university, and then they ultimately represent themselves, and they can gain. I have sat in banquets where the team is winning, and after it's over, the sponsor of that event comes up to me as the coach and says, I want to interview these kids. You know, they're going to have a job here with us if they want one.
Mm-hmm. And everyone's
There's a lot
focused
of-
on workforce development.
There's
today.
a lot of career opportunities.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to take credit for this team because I'm in a different role now. So we recruited in a young lady from a young man from Texas A&M, and then he had a family situation where he had to leave, and then we brought in a young lady from University of Wyoming who had participated on a university meat judging team, who is now one of our graduate students, and Haley Cole, and she is now coaching this team of 4 students that competes for Texas A&M Commerce against teams internationally, nationally.
Wow.
And they have now competed in 4 different contests since last January and have come in first place in 3 of the 4 contests.
Wow. Why?
And
Why is our team so good?
And well, they're trained correctly. The students are competitive by nature. They have to have that internal drive to be winners. Haley has to motivate them, which she does. They have to get along as a team. When I used to coach, I had really talented individuals, just like a football or basketball or baseball team. I could have really talented individuals, but if they don't work as a team, they don't win. And I've seen that time after time. And this group of young people is working together with Haley. Haley spends at least 3 or 4 days or nights a week with them in training, just like the football team practices every day.
Wow.
Not just something that they go to class 1 hour a week and then all of a sudden go compete. It's a lot more time on task, the correct type of training that Haley's given them, the foundation she's given them, and then the competitive spirit. It takes administrative support, it takes dollars, but at the same time, when you can announce that you're a national champion, then
3 out of 4 times.
and then that's pretty good.
It
The
is.
fact that this last event, the 4 students from A&M Commerce were first, second, third, and fourth high individuals. So you can't get much better than that. We were very, very proud. Yeah.
That's fantastic. We've got
That
a blue
doesn't
and gold target on our back now.
That doesn't happen every day. And yes, we have a target on our back now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
But
a blue and gold one. It's okay. We've earned
like-
that. That's really great.
We like to, we also try to teach them humility, and we try to practice that they are good sports, that they are competitive, but at the same time, they're friendly competitors. And I
Sounds
think
like a great blend of character development and
yes.
ready for job readiness also. That's great. So I'm curious, looking ahead, Dr. Eborn, what
Yeah.
do you expect in your niche area? Is it niche or niche? I never know. Niche?
We'll take niche.
In your area of research,
Yeah.
what's on the horizon? What do you think everyone's exploring and wrestling with for a brighter future in your world?
I think the feed efficiency is one, as mentioned earlier, that we have to get more efficient. And before, we didn't really have the technology for that, to individually feed and to select for that. But I think that's going to be one area. This microbiome and the importance it has on animal well-being is a really hot topic right now. So those are probably 2 areas that I'd pick out right at the beginning. So, yeah, I think the other concern and some research that we just finished up, I just had a graduate student finish, is we are resistance to some of our parasites, our internal and external parasites, and how we're going to manage that going forward. Is we've had some products on the market for quite a while. They appear now over time to be not as effective. And so our internal worms and our flies and stuff like that has been another topic that, how do we manage the resistance of those parasites?
And is that research in coordination with the gut health research?
You know, well, we haven't looked at the interaction of that, but that definitely could be part of it.
I'm thinking
Yeah.
there for you.
Yeah. I can get you a project if you're looking for one. Would you like to do a research project?
I'm better at coming up with an idea and saying, Dr. Eborn, you go for it.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, the interaction, how does can we use the gut biome to help against parasites? I am not aware of that, but that is a very intriguing idea.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to go start writing the grant right now.
Okay. Let me know when you get it. And,
Okay.
in fact, the gut health would probably interact with the feed efficiency too,
Yes,
right?
yes, yep. That's where I think that's where we're headed is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I like where you're headed, and this is all very exciting. If someone is really inspired by what they've heard today, how can they get in touch with you and explore and learn more about what you're doing in the College of Ag here at A&M Commerce?
I think first visit our website and just, or they can just email ag@tamuc.edu.
I'm posting it.
That comes straight to me and goes to a few others too. And then I can direct it, to Dr. Eborn or whoever it may be that they're asking questions with. Or my email is just, as you can see on the screen, Randy Harp, or you can put randy.harp@tamuc.edu. And so you can email either of those and we'll get back to you as much as we can in a timely manner.
Fantastic. And if someone wants to support the great work, also contact Randy Hart to make a gift, both in kind or outright contribution. We would absolutely love to take an already thriving program to the next level. What have I not asked you both that you would like people to know? What did I miss?
Oh, I'm sure there's, we could talk for 2 more hours, but we don't have the time for that. So I'm sure there's some other things.
To be continued.
To be continued, yes. But I think this Super Baldy approach to breeding cattle, again, is not a novice idea. It's not rocket science that we just come up with or anything like that. We don't want to present a wrong message there.
Mm-hmm.
We want to clarify that it is a method of breeding that we feel is on target for this part of the state and this part of the region of the United States. And we feel that we can also utilize this consistently for teaching and research and to help our stakeholders in North and East Texas, as we are the only university within the A&M system to have agriculture within North Texas or East Texas. And so we hope to be better stewards of service to the state, to our stakeholders, especially in the beef cattle industry, and to our students, our ag teachers, county agents, whoever it may be. I think in the long run, again, we need to be continue to focus on the safety and health and welfare of those animals in every aspect when we're taking care of them, and that we also then look at the consumer side and look at the protein product that we're producing it in the long term, because the some cut of meat, not to everyone, but for the majority of the United States, has been the center of the dinner plate for many, many years. And it has to be a product that is consumer acceptable, that is nutritious, flavorful, tender, and economical to purchase. And as of late, that the beef prices have gone up, and that's hurt a little bit from that standpoint. So all those factors have to be included, and these cattle have to be efficient, so the producer can stay in business. And so we have to keep those things in mind as well.
Mm-hmm. It impacts our daily lives. It really does. Whether you eat meat or not, what you're doing and the research you're doing impacts our lives. And I love what you said about the welfare of those animals too. Dr. Eborn, what about you? What did I miss?
I just wanted to give a shout out to our Hereford, our purebred herd too. So even though the majority of our herd is these Baldies, we are still working on our Hereford program as well. We have a livestock show team in our college that has taken some of our Herefords to shows this past year, and hopefully with the pandemic, passing over time, they'll be able to get back out and start showing. But if there's interest or people that are interested in our Hereford side or want to help with our Hereford herd as well, we would love that as well. So, yeah.
Fantastic. We do have a question.
Let me echo that with, we also have a equine stock horse team and a horse judging team. And we also have a livestock judging team that we're developing as well, and a horticulture team. So we've got a lot of things for our students to do. I know today's about cattle, but within the College of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources, we have a lot for students to do if they so choose to come to us and be engaged and be involved. So be happy to answer a question.
It's from my dad, actually. This is the only live event he's watched since we started in March. And he's very excited that you all would be here. So Charles DeLong asks, what is meant by American Kobe style beef? I'm curious too. American
Kobe style beef. Charles,
yes.
What is that?
Charles DeLong, my dad.
Oh, Charles DeLong. Okay. Okay. I can give you my perception. I don't know if you went on Google and you Googled it up, if you get the same answer or not.
He wants your answer, not Google. Dr. Eborn.
Kobe beef is usually in reference to the Wagyu breed of cattle and Wagyu just means Japanese cattle. Okay. The Japanese developed a breed of cattle that is actually marbles a lot more. In other words, they put a lot more fat within the muscle. It's also less in omega-3 fatty acids. And or did I say that right?
Yeah.
Omega-6, I think.
And in other words, it's better for us, if I get that right, chemistry-wise. And the Texas Wagyu Association, I can speak because I've done some work with them. They have bought cattle, genetics, embryos from Japan, brought them into the United States. It's a nationwide group and it's a Texas-wide group that produces these Akushi and Wagyu cattle. And so it's more now raised in the United States instead of in Japan. We could import the Wagyu meat from Japan, or we can raise it here in the United States. So the Americanized Kobe beef, Kobe is just referring to those Wagyu breeds of cattle.
Do they taste different when they're raised here? Do they have Texan accents? I guess that's what I'm saying.
I don't know if they have a Texas accent or not. Like I have an East Texas accent myself. So I think they do. The flavor is a little bit different. Some people like it. Some people don't as well. I have eaten a lot of Wagyu beef over the last 10 years and have enjoyed it every time, of course. It has to be cooked just a little bit different because there's so much fatty tissue in it. So if you cook it too well done, you dry it out because you just take more moisture out with the fat.
Okay.
So cooking has a lot to do with that as well, but it is considered a delicacy in many circles around the United States and sells for a lot more dollars in a lot of restaurants and in farmers markets and so on and so forth.
Dr. Eborn, how did Dr. Harp do with that explanation?
Good. Yeah. He's he's our resident meat science expert. So
I guess that's right. You're the breeding and the repro. Well, good. What were you going to say, Dr. Eborn?
Well, I was going to say, I was just thinking that we bring in those Wagyus. We tend to get a lot of F1s with those, putting Wagyu on Angus and, crossbreeding with Wagyu, where probably the Japanese are more straight bred Wagyu type. But that was just an impression I was thinking about. So
that's interesting. And when you say F1, what does that mean? I've heard you say that a couple times.
That's the progeny of two crosses, purebred crosses.
Okay.
If you first generation.
First cross, yep.
Okay. So it's the poodle versus the labradoodle. If I'm going dog breeds or no, totally wrong.
It'd be the Labradoodle. It'd be the Labradoodle, not the poodle or not the Labrador.
Okay.
Doodle.
All right. I'm learning. It's gonna take some more conversations, which I hope we have on the horizon. And Dad, I hope they answered your question. And if there's any more, certainly contact Randy Harp. And my dad said, Randy, that your answer was much better than Google. So well done.
Thank you.
Thank you both for your time today. This has been really enlightening, and I will think differently the next time I eat anything, honestly, after this conversation. And I'm especially interested in all of the breeding science that goes behind what we eat. This has gotten me thinking in a new way. So thank you both. Any parting words of wisdom you'd like to share before we go?
All this talk has made me hungry, so talking about
Me
meat, I'm hungry now, so.
I would say this. I'd say two things. One, if you're out listening and you see this later, if you have friends or children, send your students to A&M Commerce. Give us the opportunity to help them. Two, if you are so inclined in the cattle industry, then we'd be very welcome to visit with you. I know that Texas A&M at College Station has changed the direction of their cattle breeding, and now so have we. We're not doing it because they did. I learned of it later after we started this, and so we're both trying to fit, a part of the industry, and no, we're not doing the same thing. So more than one breed is going to fit, and so we hope that this is a direction that will fit a lot of people in as an example, but more so it will help the education and research for our students.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I look forward to seeing more ag majors. I know it's the college that keeps growing, literally and metaphorically, and we want to keep that up. So thank you both for everything you do to make our program strong, and the research that you're doing, Dr. Eborn, to really make a better future for the cattle industry and for consumers and producers. So thank you both. And with that, I'll say go Lions.
Go Lions.
Y'all have a good one.
Okay. Thank you.